Now, this isn't officially in the Illuvium thing so far, guys, so it will have a lot of changes. I haven't fully read it since it's been updated and things like that. But the idea is that buy and distribute the ILV over a period of time. At the very least, just for the first land sale. This will likely be a very temporary thing as we get more information down the road. What do you think about
the topic that we're going to have that debate about? So this is the entire debate is going to be solely on this one topic.
So we'll just touch on it really briefly then. What do you think about the 30, 60 days? Do you think it should be even longer or shorter or a week?
So
a week,
when Daraji initially proposed it, he obviously proposed it for being like half a year. And initially, I'm in favor of it. Honestly, part of me is like, why don't we make it a whole year? You know? But then the more that I've considered it, the more that I've considered different points, I think there's one question that needs to be actually answered before we can even discuss any of this. And I think it's Kieran that brought this point across, which is actually, whether it's 180 days or 90 days or 10 days or 5 days, it can't, that shouldn't really be determined until after the sale.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how big the sale is going to be. Maybe like 95% of the sale is SILV2, which we're obviously all burning. And then maybe we've only got $5 or $10 million worth of ETH, in which case I don't see any reason to distribute that over 6 months. That can casually be distributed over a month. I think a month is fine. It gives it some smoothness, like prevents people gaming the system. But like, do we need to spread out that much of a buy over the course of like ages? I don't think we do. Maybe there's an argument for that being better to be done over like 2 months. Like, we'd have to look at the numbers there, but we don't have any numbers until after the sale happens. Daraji's entire proposal is based on the assumption that we get an $100 million raised. So if we don't get $100 million, and I'm pretty sure he'd agree with me, like if we get 10 million, I think he'd have a different logic, and maybe we don't need as much of a time to distribute it. But personally, I am very much of the mindset, if we have a huge raise, we should lock it up for a long duration of time. The initial reason that everybody pushes back on that idea is because if you think about it, like the first thing that comes to mind is I'm staked in the protocol. It's being distributed over, let's say, a year. And then somebody that comes in 6 months down the road is going to be taking revenue distribution that I should have had if it was distributed in a shorter period of time. And part of that thinking is actually like just not being fully aware of the maths, because that's just an initial like perspective. But when you look under the hood, if you have been staked for like a while now, or even if you've just started staking today, you're almost not being diluted at all by anyone coming in later on, because of just how little difference it makes by somebody else coming in to take a piece. And also by the fact that as you've stayed in longer, you also are earning ILV yield, which also increases the amount of revenue distribution that you personally get. So the longer it's distributed over, the more personal ILV power you have to soak that up. So somebody else coming in and staking a bit, they're not like, and then somebody says like, well, what if huge whales come in and stake and take it all away from, like, how much can they stake? Not that much. There's only so much ILV out there, right? So your shares cannot be diluted that much. And we're talking on the scale of like 1% maybe gets lost, like realistically speaking. So I see no reason to not increase the length, because it incentivizes long-term staking. I don't think there's any good reason for a protocol to incentivize short-term staking, because what you suddenly do is you make it more profitable potentially for people to not engage with you in a long-term mindset. And the whole point of our protocol is for everyone to be involved in it long-term. There will always be traders and short-term investors, and we're not trying to alienate them. We're purely trying to incentivize them to have more of a reason to stick around for longer, so that if they want to, they can. And if they don't want to, we're not forcing anything on anyone at any point.
Yeah, and actually, Scoriox, I've realized that during this discussion, you've been a little quiet about the fact that you were also a nominee for all of the election and the council and stuff. So your thoughts and perspectives are very, very, very valuable here. So like, what are your thoughts? And actually, I want to ask like two things for both of you guys. Putting on your council hat, like putting on your DAO hat first. Like, you obviously Vetemor's given his examples, his perspective. And if you take that away and you're like, yo, selfishly, individually, would you want to get it like, or does your individual wants line up with what's best for the DAO as well? I hope that question kind of makes sense.
Okay, so firstly, I think everything Vetemor said is really accurate. I don't really have anything more to add on that. He said it really well. He put all the perspectives. I pretty much line up identically to that. The big one being find out how much we get from the sale first, then decide. Of course. Really, that's. Of course. I think that's very important. Even I keep missing that detail. I'm like, I'm very excited for the land sale. So everyone gets ahead of themselves, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just that simple. As far as what I would personally want, as opposed to what the DAO might be best for the DAO and stuff like that. Look, I'm here for the long term. I don't really care what happens. I just want my RevDis. If I were to be as selfish as I possibly can, I want whatever gives me the biggest advantage to compound interest my rewards, right? That's the biggest thing I want. If I make the most money by getting it quickly and then reinvesting it, then by all means. But you know what? That's actually how I get the least amount of money, because since the price goes up so fast, I get less ILV. All I care about is getting as much ILV as I possibly can. If I have to be the last holder of ILV that has staked up 90% of the supply, then so be it, right? Yeah. So that being said, longer period of time works better for my personal goals, and a lower token price works better for my personal goals. But that's pretty good incentive for the DAO as well, to a degree. But for most investors, they want token price to go up. So I'm opposed to most investors, but I think most stakers, especially the ones that watch my videos, because I talk about it extensively, do align with what I want as well in that way. But I would assume that most people just want the token price to go up, and that is the way to do it, is to stack it all in as quickly as you can. Yeah, my thoughts on this again, because I haven't really shared any of my thoughts in all the interviews and stuff, and it's been interesting because I've gotten like pretty much everyone's perspective on this. Like, I've been exposed to everyone's perspective, but I've kind of withheld my own opinion. And my thoughts are actually that. And I think I agree slightly more, not slightly more, but I lean towards Raul's perspective of allowing the free market to do what it's going to do. I don't think like an instant dump is the right idea. The way that I look at it is maybe like a 30-day like window, so about a month, like just as if like, again, a normal salary, right? You work 30 days, you get paid. I think it should be done in a similar way. Give people the choice of what they want to do. Like, let them, if the price does go up, I think just let the market do what it's going to do. It's not going to affect it. I think forcing people to stay, again, like 3 months is still fine, but I think the longer we go, the more I'm against it. Just because it's like the opportunity cost. Like you say, if you want to compound the rewards as well, getting it sooner for people like us, I'm sure all of us, if we did get it on the first day, we would restake all of it anyway. I doubt any of us are selling. And the next event comes on and we're going to have like ILV there. That's where I stand. I know that's probably not the most popular position to be, but I'm down to kind of let things happen the way it should happen and not handhold, because that's the whole point of decentralization, kind of like just letting it be what it does. Yeah. Really, the last thing I'll say on this is that I have run the numbers on a lot of this sort of stuff before Jiraji put out his thing, but I wasn't focusing on the land sale. I was focusing on the open world gameplay, potential revenue, and that sort of thing. Yeah. And I ran it over 6 months. And what happens is at the 6 month point, it's as if the system doesn't exist. I ran the numbers exactly how it might be calculated. If it's 6 months, at the 6 month point, it's as if the system does not exist. if you run it for 5 months at the 5 month point and so on. Okay. The only real difference, I mean, you have to wait that 6 months to hit that point, but the only real difference here is the volatility. If it's 30 days and you have a land sale in that period, then for the next 30 days, you're earning way more than you're earning for the 30 days after, and so on and so forth. So it just, the volatility of how much you're earning shifts. That is the only difference. That is the only difference here that we need to look at, and whether or not that matters to people. Because again, as I said, if you do 6 months, at the 6 month point, no one will care anymore because it won't make any difference at all. Yeah. Whereas if you do 30 days, you need to start the 6 months thing early. Whereas if you do 30 days, then you'll hit these months where everything's going really well. And then you'll hit months later on where everything is not going very well. For example, around Christmas, spending is down, I believe, across the board for most industries that aren't, let's say, toys. But so you run into that problem, right? Where you have certain times of the year where spending is going to be down and people are going to be earning less. And is that going to harm the Illuvium game? Will you lose people because they're like, oh, it's not earning as much anymore, even though it's going to pick up later? I don't know. I don't know what that would look like, but is that important? That's all.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is waiting to see what actually happens. But all right, let's move on to.
I think Ben had something to say.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
On the what would I do selfishly versus the DAO? Just like, I think it's the way that you define selfishness, because like what most people call selfish, I actually call being irrational, because you're actually not acting in your own self-interest. You're often just acting in a way that you think is going to benefit you short term, but it actually just doesn't benefit you in the long term. And ultimately, if you're trying to be selfish, you actually want to be selfish long term. And the ultimate way to be selfish long term is actually to be cooperative with others, to be nice and be like respectful in relationships. And when it comes to Illuvium and the way that Illuvium's set up, it's set up such that if you are a rational actor, for you to act selfishly is for you to act in the best interest of the DAO. That's how the incentive structures have been set up. That's what I love so much about Illuvium, which is that I can be on the council, and as long as I'm being rational, I can be purely selfish because my incentives and the DAO's incentives are actually aligned. The entire time. With the whole like, should it be free market or not free market? I am all for free market. I'm a big believer in free market, but I think Scoriox also brings up a solid point that, do we want people to have stability, or are we happy with volatility? And obviously, investing in Illuvium, you are investing in a potentially volatile asset purely because crypto market. But like, do we want it to be super volatile? Because it isn't just like, oh, like this is crypto, like prices are the way they are. Like, it's not like that, because this is a business, this is a DAO, and the way that we distribute our revenue doesn't have anything to do with, oh, we're doing this because crypto is like this. We do it the way that is best going to benefit the DAO and its shareholders. And the shareholders, the majority of our shareholders are people that believe in Illuvium long term and are staked in Illuvium long term. And long term people aren't too concerned of the volatility, which is definitely why Rarlord says, I don't really care. Like, have the like the moment we get in-game revenue, we should have that straight away. Like let it come straight away. I get that point completely for that reason, because if you're a long-term holder, you don't care, right? You just don't.
Exactly.
If you're not a whale and you are potentially like relying on that revenue distribution down the line, you're a smaller investor, you actually take those profits potentially, and you've been enjoying a nice smooth income stream, and then suddenly like winter comes, maybe like the holiday season, and it just the well dries up somewhat, and you might actually have to liquidate some of the assets just to get through those times, which obviously, I don't think that we need to handhold during those periods because that is what free market is. So
Yeah.
I want it to be a question of which one of those two options actually is the best for the DAO. Is there something to be said about at least having like 2 weeks where like even in-game revenues are like spread over the next like 2 weeks just to smooth things out, purely because like weekends will have like probably more purchasing than weekdays. Do we want to smooth that out a little bit just for smoothness sake? And part of it as well is you have to smooth out buys at least a little bit, purely because there's a liquidity pool that you're buying from.
Yeah.
If you do a huge buy at once, you actually decrease the amount of ILV tokens you can buy. So
I don't think anyone denies that. It shouldn't be like in a 1 day payment. I don't think anyone
obviously.
Yeah.